Hello, this is Jane Goodall. First, let me thank you for the opportunity to say a few words at this important gathering. As we all know, our planet is going through dark times, politically, socially, and environmentally. And the thing is, these are all interconnected. In other words, to solve the climate crisis, we must also solve many political and social problems. We must solve ignorance due to lack of education or fake news. And we must tackle all these urgently before it's too late if we're to keep global temperatures below a rise of 1.5 degrees. Even those who are strident climate change deniers are now forced to admit that there are changing weather patterns. But of course, many still insist that the buildup of greenhouse gases is part of a normal cycle of nature and would be happening even if we weren't releasing vast amounts of CO2 and methane into the environment, even if we weren't destroying forests and polluting the ocean, even if there were not billions of humans with unsustainable lifestyles placing unsustainable demands on nature's finite natural resources, and even more billions living in poverty and destroying the environment simply in order to survive. I've lived almost 90 years on planet Earth, and I've seen many changes in weather patterns. When I was a child, growing up on the south coast of England, we used to have cold winters with thick frost and a lot of snow. But gradually that has changed. Today, there are only a few days of mild frost and little to no snow. When I arrived at my chimp study site in Tanzania in 1960, there were 3 distinct seasons. The short rains began mid-October and ended before Christmas. Then after 2 or 3 dry weeks, the long rains began, and it rained virtually every day, sometimes all day long, until May. Then followed the long dry season. Today, there's one rainy season interspersed with long dry days, and then the dry season is interspersed with many rainy days. Because global temperatures are rising, weather patterns are changing everywhere. There are more frequent, terrifying hurricanes and typhoons, more serious flooding, longer droughts, and an increasing number of horrendous fires burning around the globe. Sea levels are rising as the water expands due to warming temperatures. Polar ice and glaciers are melting. The land is increasingly polluted and the soils killed by the use of agricultural chemicals. Huge areas of land are cleared to provide grazing for the billions of animals we use for food, or to provide grain for the billions raised in the inhumane conditions of factory farms. Agribusiness releases vast amounts of CO2 into the atmosphere. Much water, increasingly scarce in many places, is needed to change plant to animal protein. And of course, all these animals produce huge amounts of methane during digestion, and this adds to the methane released during the unexpectedly rapid melting of permafrost. As we pollute land, air, rivers, and oceans, we harm all life forms, including our own. It's really important to remember that we're part of and depend on the natural world for air, water, food, everything. But we depend on healthy ecosystems in which the interrelated plant and animal species all have a role to play, creating a living tapestry. Each time a species becomes extinct, a thread is pulled from the tapestry until it hangs in tatters, the ecosystem collapses, and human livelihoods and health are compromised, especially the livelihoods of those living in poverty. It's clear then that we must develop a new relationship with the natural world because our health and well-being is inextricably linked with the health and well-being of the environment in which we live. Let me emphasize here that what separates us most from other animals is the explosive development of our intellect. Yet, despite this, we're destroying our only home. We make decisions that lead to short-term gain at the expense of protecting the environment, protecting it for future generations. We embrace the absurd idea that can be unlimited economic development on a planet with finite natural resources, growing populations of humans and livestock. We seem to have lost wisdom. We no longer ask how will our decisions affect future generations, but only how they will affect us now, the next shareholders meeting, our next political campaign. And I truly believe that only when head and heart work together can we attain our true human potential. I've heard scientists say that we've already passed the point of no return when it comes to global warming. But I believe we have a window of time when, if we get together, we can at least slow down the heating of the planet. Fortunately, as more and more people are understanding that it's vital to protect the natural world, we're using our intellect to do so. We're realizing that industrial farming with its monocultures, reliance on chemical pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers is destroying the soil and damaging the biodiversity that provides healthy ecosystems. We're realizing the importance of organic regenerative farming, permaculture, and small family farms. We're beginning to understand that factory farms, those concentration camps for animals, are adding vast amounts of greenhouse gases to the environment, and are not only cruel to animals, but bad for our health and should be phased out. We're beginning to understand the importance of protecting and restoring forests and planting and caring for trees. And this includes urban tree planting because, for one thing, it reduces the heat generated by vast areas of concrete and buildings and brings biodiversity back into our cities. We're beginning to understand the need to reduce the unsustainable lifestyle of those in affluent communities that is making an unrealistic demand on the planet's natural resources. And beginning to understand the need to alleviate poverty, because when you're really poor in a rural area, you cut down the last trees in your desperation to get more land to grow food for your growing family or make money from charcoal or timber. And in an urban area, you buy the cheapest food. You don't have the luxury of asking if its production harmed the environment, was cruel to animals, is cheap because of unfair wages. Many scientists are working on creating renewable energy from the sun, the wind, the tides. Others are working on machines to extract CO2 from the atmosphere. Electric vehicles are continually being improved, and scientific brains are working to produce ever more efficient batteries. In so many ways, science is improving our infrastructure and enabling us to live in greater harmony with nature. What can the ordinary citizen do? Well, we can move towards a plant-based diet and think about ways of reducing the enormous amount of waste that we create. Tons and tons of food goes into landfills, while millions do not even have one good meal a day. Masses of clothing is bought, used, and thrown away. We can work to change our materialistic societies that have developed a buy, use, discard mentality in place of buy and use and reuse for as long as possible, and then recycle. We can fit solar panels to our houses. We can try to walk, bike, or use public transport whenever possible. And fortunately, many cities are becoming more friendly for pedestrians and cyclists. We can support legislation to protect our local environment, or we can donate to a conservation NGO. Finally, every school should build environmental teaching into the curriculum and encourage, especially for young children, as much outdoor education as possible. What you learn to love, you will want to protect. Do I have hope for the future? Everyone asks me that, and I truly believe that if we get together, if we use our extraordinary intellect and develop a definition of success that is not based on acquisition of wealth and power, but on leading a meaningful life, having enough but not too much, and above all, live in harmony with the natural world. Young children, older children, university students, they have so much energy and dedication once they understand the problems, and we empower them to act. Finally, we must remember that each one of us matters, and each one of us has a role to play. Each one of us makes an impact on the planet every day, and we can choose what sort of impact we make. Millions of small ethical choices in how we live, made by millions of people around the globe, moves us towards a better world. We know what we have to do. Nature is resilient if we give her a chance. The only question is, do we have the strength and the courage and the will to take action? If we care about our grandchildren and theirs, if we care about the magic of this tiny blue and green globe, planet Earth, surrounded by the cold, black immensity of space, our only home, then we can save it. Indeed, we must, before it's too late. Thank you all.